Hi, welcome to Rocket Fuel, your daily update of everything that's happening in Rocket Pool and Ethereum. My name is Wack. Today is May 1st, and today's episode is going to cover Devnet 2 for Saturn 1 launching, a smart node update on the Rocket Pool side. We've also got a Hyperdrive update on the node set side if you're a node set node operator. On Ethereum, we're going to be talking about a new L2 coming up that is quite interesting. We're going to be talking about Ethereum adoption during the month of April and Visa building on Ethereum and a whole lot more. So let's get started.
10, 9, ignition sequence start, 6.
Okay, we're going to start here with this update from Langers, and this update has been a long time coming, in all honesty. It's pretty much a month late from where we expected it, and we've talked to Rocket Fuel a bunch of times about why it's late, and what's caused it to be late. There was the issue with Haleshki, and then there was the problems with Hoodie and the long stake wait and all that kind of stuff. There was a lot of issues. So anyway, Langers here comes and announces that Devnet 2 is live for Saturn. It's been deployed and now available for the community to play, test and break. To interact with the Saturn Devnet, please install version 1.16.0 dev development for Hoodie, build using the following command. And then there's a link there to the command. And it says, please share any findings or feedback in the dedicated feedback thread. There's a thread there as well. We're going to pop into that and have a look in a minute. And then building on the deposit process introduced in Devnet 1, this release adds several key features, such as ETH reward distribution, exiting validators, ETH capital distribution, commission controller, and security council adder, over bonded credit, and ODAO stake penalization. And then it says, bear in mind, the Hoodie deposits are currently taking days to process. Meanwhile, development on the smart contract components for Devnet 3 is already underway. Saturn is moving full speed ahead. And then Langers finishes by saying, let me know if you have any questions or concerns. So let's have a look at the web feedback, dedicated feedback thread, and see if there's anything else. Nope, just the latest thing we have here is that there was an announcement, and yeah, here Langers, the last thing Langers said here, like last week and also earlier this week, was that the withdrawal proof has been harder than expected, very close, aim to get it in everyone's hand this week, which is what they've been able to do. They got it out on Friday their time. So yeah, if you are one of those nice people who likes to test things for Rocket Pool, now is your chance to go and play around with the Devnet 2 on Hoodie and go wild, have fun. Okay, here we have a tweet that came out from Rocket Pool today saying that Nimbus version 25.4.1 has been incorporated into Smart Node stack along with upgrades to Lighthouse and Geth. So this latest version is recommended if you're running any of the three clients. Ensure your node is either on 15.5 or 1.15.5 or 1.15.6 to support next week's Pectra fork. So Pectra takes place on the 7th, which is Wednesday next week. You need basically to update to the latest version of the smart node before that time, otherwise you will fork the chain. So please don't fork the chain, and let's get you updated to Pectra. It only literally takes like less than 5 minutes of your time. It's so straightforward, and then everything will be humming along just fine. So there was a post here with a bit more details about what's going into Pectra, and that is from Fornax. So sorry, not into Pectra, into SmartNode 1.15.6. Fornax says we released this version. It's a high urgency update for ODAO nodes who need to operate before the next rewards checkpoint, which is on Thursday, the day after Pectra. It says, and that is for that's for the ODA members. So if they're using 1.15.4 or older, for node operators, it's a low urgency upgrade if you're on 15.5, but all node operators need to be on 15.5 or 15.6 before the fork. So get that. So there's got client updates and there's process committees correctly post Electra. So the smart node change as well, but very minimal. And there's a guide to updating. Like I said, it only takes a couple of minutes. You have to make sure that you do it before May 7th. That's US time. Sorry, May 8th US time at 1:35 a.m. So yeah, make sure you're on that, and everything will be fine. Okay, next we've got news of opportunity for our ETH holders that Spartan is putting out there, and he says I'm building out a DeFi strategy to bring more utility for rETH on Base. Some of the dApps that I'm working with need seeded liquidity, a minimum of $10,000. If anyone has idle rETH that they want to earn yield on and help bring more utility to rETH, feel free to DM Spartan. So Spartan, of course, has been working with Alpha Growth to get more rETH on chain, and they're doing that through all these really cool relationships and strategies and stuff. And this is the latest one of those where you can help out basically by seeding some liquidity for these apps, and then they can get the flywheel going for getting more rETH on Base, which of course would be really, really awesome to see. So if you have some rETH lying around, I guess, $10,000 is about five rETH, pretty much thereabouts. If you have some rETH lying around, or if you don't mind swapping some of your ETH into rETH, then you can earn some good yield on these pools. And normally with incentives, like in those first days and weeks, there's a whole lot of incentives to be earned before liquidity really builds up. So there's a chance that you could be getting some really good yield as being the first person in the pool. So reach out to Spartan. If you are not comfortable reaching out to Spartan, you're welcome to reach out to me, and I can put you in touch with Spartan and get the ball rolling for that process. Okay, moving on to some staking news, and here we have news from NodeSet, and this is version 1.2.1 for Hyperdrive, which is their version of the Rocket Pool Smart Node, their node management software. And it says that this includes some client updates, bug fixes, and optimizations for Stakewise module. Also removes Haleshki from the list of default networks. And it says all mainnet users must update to at least version 1.2.0 before Pectra, which is on May 7th. At 10:05 a.m. UTC. So I think Fornax got the time wrong in that post, maybe in the other one, because I thought it was on May 7th as well. So that's definitely something to keep your eyes open for, verify. But I think it's Joe who's got it right here. So it says that this is a required update if you're not on version 1.2.0. And if you are, but you use Nimbus, then it's a high priority update for you. And for everyone else, it's medium priority update at your convenience. So I know maybe I shouldn't be saying this, but I think that we will get new versions of the Smart Node and Hyperdrive out before May 7th. So if you want to wait, a few days, then feel free to wait and get your node updated maybe in 3 or 4 days time. Then I think you should be fine. So yeah, it's pretty cool. Okay, let's move on to some Ethereum news now, and we got some really interesting news here. There we go. We got some really interesting news here from this new project called Ethereum R1. So they are saying that they are a stage 2 rollup that Ethereum builders deserve. There's no token, no gatekeeping, just code, community, and decentralized public infrastructure, which sounds absolutely amazing. Now, if you have a look over here, this is the introduction of a new L2, and they're saying that this is a neutral rollup built for Ethereum. There's no token, no private sales, no governance cult, just Ethereum values, public funding, and community control. So why R1 matters and how you can join. So R1 here says general purpose L2 should be commodities, simple, replaceable, and free from centralized dependencies or risk governance. Ethereum R1 is our answer to that call. This rollup grounded in credible neutrality, decentralization, and censorship resistance. So it said, why now? It says most L2s today are acting more like new L1s than the Ethereum scaling solution. Private allocations, opaque governance, centralized control. Ethereum deserves a public decentralized alternative. So what is R1? So it's 100% donation funded. So there'll be no token, no pre-sale. It'll be stage 2 from day 1, which is absolutely amazing. So they'll have permissionless proving, long upgrade delays, broad community multisig, and then they'll have public goods funding until 2030, and then all fees will be burned, and it's replaceable by design. And then they're saying R1 belongs to Ethereum. There's no VC, no foundation, not even the team, basically. So this infrastructure that can outlive us all. So who is it for? This is for devs who want to contribute to a truly public rollup, app builders seeking censorship resistance home, ETH holders who want to fund Ethereum, not extraction schemes. And then built on the stack from Nethermind, the search stack that we talked about a couple of weeks ago, and using open source code from Tycho. and then 1% of base fee, that's the fee that they'll earn through the sequencer, I guess, will go to Taiko DAO until 2030, or until fees are burned, whichever comes later. And open infrastructure, open collaboration. They've got a draft roadmap. They've got community discussion starting in Telegram. There's no token to chase, just shared purpose. So if you want to get involved, there's links to their website, their GitHub, and their Telegram group. So if you believe rollups should be a commodity, not a cartel, this is the movement. Let's build something that truly scales Ethereum together. So this is from a bunch of their team members. So yeah, this is absolutely awesome. I really love this idea. I really want there to be more of this for Ethereum. I honestly, like I've been saying for a while, that the first L2, the first rollup that reaches stage 2, I will feel totally comfortable telling people to send their funds over there from mainnet. At the moment we don't have any of them that like that. Arbitrum is close, Optimism's not too far, but there's a psychological chasm or philosophical chasm about those upgrade delays. That's causing a bit of an issue about what kind of control you want. But with this, that's going to be a different situation. So if they can get apps, if they can get incentives from apps running on there that will drive usage and demand, it's going to be tough. Like it's going to be really tough to get usage, because with these kind of apps, what happens is, with these kind of L2s, you live and die by the TVL that you get and the usage that you get. So even though it will match philosophically and idealistically with Ethereum users, what we need to make sure is that we can help it grow and get those apps there. So that's going to be very, very interesting to see. I'm really excited about this. That's why I made it my first story in the Ethereum section today. It's really cool, and I'm going to look out for them and see what they're doing going forwards, and trying to boost them, because we need more projects like this. Okay, Hani Abu has been doing amazing work in Ethereum land, and he's doing really, really great work in Ethereum land, and just getting information out there, building dashboards, and getting information accessible to as many people as possible. One of the websites that I've mentioned on Rocket Fuel many, many times is ethereumadoption.com, where he talks about different protocols that are building on Ethereum. He started putting out a monthly tweet where he gives a recap of the previous month's developments. And here it says that updates from Ethereum adoption. So the 3rd of April, Calstone announces tokenized distribution platform with support for mainnet. On the 3rd of April again, BNY Mellon announces digital assets data insights with support for mainnet. That's the one that BlackRock, it looks like, will probably be building on, which is what we got here on April 28th. April 28th. Yeah, he wrote 20. I don't even know how to pronounce that, 28RD, like 23rd, but yeah, 28th. BlackRock, BNY Mellon announced plan for Treasury Trust Fund DLT shares with support for mainnet. So this is incredibly exciting. This is really, really cool stuff. And I think it's going to be awesome that we're getting so much growth coming to Ethereum. And he says there 130 high profile entities building on Ethereum already. Everyone should be building on Ethereum. Like that's we're going to be talking about that a little bit later, but that's really, really cool to see. So yeah, that one on the 28th though, that is mind blowing. Like I'm still kind of not getting over that $150 billion in assets potentially coming on chain. Absolutely phenomenal. Okay, let's talk about some more adoption stuff. And this is by Ethereum Vibin, got a screenshot, and this is news that came out yesterday about Visa launching crypto stablecoin payments in Latin America. MasterCard had an announcement recently as well about crypto payments coming through. Absolutely amazing stuff. And then Ethereum Vibin dug into the code and found that it's powered by Ethereum. As always, it says Visa Tokenization Asset Platform. With VTAP, we've talked about this in Rocket Fuel before, is a new product that helps banks issue fiat-backed tokens. BBVA, that's the Bank of Spain, will use VTAP to create tokens on the public Ethereum blockchain with expected live pilots in 2025. So this is the platform they'll be using to get their tokens on chain, and they're going to be working on Ethereum. So this is awesome. Like, this is going to potentially open up Ethereum to tens of millions of new people. And a lot of people in Latin America, South America use crypto to, get around their massively inflating currencies that they have at the national level. So good stuff. Okay, there was this really cool blog post put out by Omid here, and Omid you might know as a professor. I think it's at Columbia. I'm not 100% sure. I'll check in a second. But he writes amazing stuff about Ethereum. Like he's a great ETH maxi. Some really really good content here. And then this article is saying the past is not the future. And what he does here is he kind of criticizes companies and people for looking backwards to figure out how things are, for what things are and how they should be valued, instead of looking forwards for what they can be and what they will be in the future. And like he talks about Bitcoin, and he talks about different ways of kind of valuing Bitcoin and how people look back at it. And then here he then starts talking about Ethereum. He says also today a lot of people love talking about general purpose layer one blockchains like Ethereum in terms reserved for corporations providing a service, and that's like using the discounted cash flow method of working out like what the income is and what the payments are and all that kind of stuff, and like what you add a multiple to that to get value of the company. And like people are saying that method is broken for looking at Ethereum. So what Omid says here is that people, as they look backwards and try to look at these different companies, they are trying to give them value. And he uses a really good example of Amazon. Like basically in the early 2000s, Amazon had all these ideas of what they wanted to be in the future, but at the time they were like loss. They were making a loss basically, and they were just not growing, like they were just not developing in the way that people I guess were thinking of, like when it came to book selling businesses or whatever. But Amazon had this idea of what they wanted to be in the future, and no one was valuing Amazon on what they wanted to be in the future. They were valuing Amazon on what they were at that time. And Omid's making the point that it's it's the same thing that's happening with Ethereum. And then at the end of the blog post here, he kind of talks about Ethereum. He says, today Ethereum is pursuing a similar strategy of Amazon. It's underpricing roll-up data and settlement in order to enhance overall network effects. Layer 1 fees are down, while L2 like Base are generating hefty profits. This dichotomy is sort of the point. The more profitable one rollup is for the issuer, the more rollups we'll have, and the more L2s derive security from Ethereum, the more irreplaceable the L1 will be. So then he goes on to give some more information as well about like the FAT protocol thesis, and he finishes by saying, once we have some clarity on these variables, then smart people will formalize them some kind of valuation rubric, but the value creation will have to happen first, and those who get caught up cramming new things into old models will be caught offside. After all, this is the first joint stock companies could not be valued in ways invented for land, and options couldn't be valued using formulas meant for equities, and Amazon and Google turned out to be very different businesses from Barnes and Noble and NBC. So there's some really, really good ideas here from Omid. And a lot of people actually really like this post on Twitter as well. So he kind of like teased a little bit of the ETH section, but you could read the whole thing. Like, it got thousands of views and hundreds of likes. Etc. said, you always deliver. Jasper actually had a really interesting point. He says this will be cited in my upcoming paper on the grand model of Ethereum. He's been teasing this since Christmas. So yeah, come on, Jasper, get on your bike, get it out. Stake Your ETH says, great read. It's frustrating to see how crypto Twitter continues to backfill narratives because they think the past decade of crypto has any meaning to it besides acting as an unregulated casino. And then it goes on to say that this is blockchain tech, zero legitimate adoption in that time. Yeah, try to extrapolate the future from that. We're finally entering the era of real adoption, like insinuating it just doesn't make sense. So yeah, I think that we're on the cusp of a whole bunch of different things here. We're on the cusp of huge scaling for Ethereum that we're going to be talking about soon. And we're on the cusp of a lot of legitimate businesses and organizations building on Ethereum, which is a whole new thing. And I think people just aren't ready for what Ethereum is going to look like in 1 year, 2 years, 5 years, definitely not in 10 years. I don't think I can even imagine what it's going to look like in 10 years. All I know that it's going to be awesome, and I'm here for it. Okay, Anthony Sassal put out a really good post kind of begrudging people on crypto Twitter and people like, in the influencer sphere about how they're saying that Ethereum has pivoted. Now, there are a whole bunch of people who are using this language of a pivot from Ethereum. Even some Ethereans are using this language of a pivot, which is, funny. But what he's saying is that this isn't a pivot. Basically, this is a reprioritization. And I think Sassano's kind of talking about how there is a subtle difference between that terminology. Like a pivot will say that, Ethereum was going in the wrong direction and now it's changing to be something else. And, that can sometimes sound knee jerky, or it can sound like it's reactionary. However, a reprioritization instead is more like, we had all these different things that we wanted to do, and now we're just changing the order of them a little bit. He actually mentioned this on the previous episode, Daily Gwei, that came out this weekend as well, where he talked about this a little bit. But he said basically the core devs for Ethereum from 2019 to 2024 were really, really busy working on the beacon chain and working on the merge and withdrawals, and then getting proto dunk sharding, blobs ready and out. So they were heads down with all of those things. So they haven't had a chance really to work on other things in that time. And now that they're able to do that, that's what they're going to do. And that's kind of the point he makes. So he actually shares this really famous roadmap picture from Vitalik where, people who are supportive of Ethereum are like, wow, this is so cool. Like, this is really clear. Some of them who kind of buy into Vitalik's vision, and the people who don't buy into Vitalik's vision are just like, what is this mess? It's just like, what is the merge, the surge, the scourge, the verge, the purge, the splurge? That doesn't make any sense. Like, what do these words mean? Like, they're words in English, but how does that link to like what blockchains do, right? But anyway, what Sassal did here was he went through each of those sections and kind of circled the things that people are now calling a pivot, but they were there all along, and they're just kind of moving up the stack a little bit instead of maybe a little bit further along the timeline. That's what's happened. So there's really interesting that people are kind of like for and against this post. It got a lot of attention, 100,000 views, 500 likes, but people kind of like saying that the perspective is kind of important, and it depends on the posturing from the Ethereum Foundation and the community, and I kind of get those points to some extent, but I think that we should be honest as well and understand that this is stuff that Ethereum's been working on for a while. It's just kind of things around a little bit. Okay, one thing Ethereum's not been working on for a while, I'll have to be honest, is this EIP 7938. This goes along with 9698 as well. I think that I covered on Rocket Fuel yesterday, the day before, from Dankrad. And Dankrad, of course, is one of the senior researchers at the Ethereum Foundation, and he is pushing this EIP 7938 called exponential gas limit increases, basically wanting to 100x Ethereum scaling over 4 years. So he wrote on Ethereum Magicians here, kind of explaining why he's doing this. So he says, writing more about the reasons for this, he says key considerations, there's strategic, technical, and execution. And this is for the strategic reasons. The Ethereum L1 needs to be the economic center of Ethereum, and this will drive revenue as a moat for DA. And then it's like the L1 is, if it's unimportant, it loses attraction, liquidity, and DeFi, less of a reason for L2s to even remain attached to Ethereum. And then there's the Ethereum ecosystem competes with other ecosystems, and we need to get better, basically. With technical, he talks about blocks and building blocks and how it all works. And he says within this year, we'll have proving within a single slot delay, and all teams expected order of magnitude improvements to continue for at least a few years. So he says this means that for the first time we'll have the ability to significantly scale the L1, so that a lot of activity can continue to happen, not just 10x the scale, we can 100x to 1000x the current scale, while keeping Ethereum's most important properties. And what he actually says here is that verifiability and censorship resistance are the most important properties, and not like home staking. So that's interesting. He says Ethereum's current node architecture is a copy of Bitcoin's from 2009. We'll need to update the Ethereum node types for 2020s and 2030s. So he says some roles such as full nodes, testing, and fossil are likely to be even lighter than they are today, while others building and proving will become more beefy. However, all the beefy node types come with a one out of n honesty assumption, making sure that we can always be easily replaced. So this idea is that node operators right now do all of these different duties in one, and that's going to be broken up, like what we were talking about in yesterday's episode with Vitalik talking about how the different operations that node operators do will change. With that division happening, we will still have node operators running at home, and there will be attesting, they'll be getting rewards, and they might not be block building, but there might also be block building. So that's going to be interesting to see how that works as well, depending on what kind of systems they want to run. And then execution, he says in the past we've been very reluctant to certain things, such as commit to timelines, plan actively for the future, several forks ahead, and execute efficiency. And then he says, committing to scaling timeline makes it clear what the goal is. Let's just plan backwards from the goal. Like, you set your targets and then you see, what can you do in year one? What can you do in year two? And make sure you do them and be held accountable for that. So he says, doesn't that make us a data center chain like Solana if the block builders themselves are running on beefy machines? And he says, I think it's irrelevant whether some superficial aspects of Ethereum look more like Solana or not. So the core value proposition of Ethereum is not the home staker, it's verifiability and censorship resistance. So he says, while the future world looks significantly different from now, I would argue it's not clearly better or worse in those aspects, just a different set of trade-offs. So this is actually really interesting because we will actually give the possibility of those people verifying the chain to make it so easy that it could literally be in every browser, every wallet. Like it could be in addition to that, and it's whenever you have your computer on, your browser open, you could be verifying the chain in the background. That could potentially bring tens of millions of people, becoming verifiers, because they'll just need to verify the ZK proof that that's come out, right? And then there'll be testers who are most similar, I think, to current stakers, and they'll have a few different duties, but then the block builders will be separate entity. And I don't know how, the rewards will be broken down according to those people, how they'll be getting their staking rewards and things like that. It's going to be very interesting to see how that plays out. But the conclusion here, Dankrad says, is due to these updates, strategic and technical environments, I think by far the best strategy for Ethereum from here is, in addition to supporting L2s via blob scaling and UX interoperability improvements to significantly scale the L1, the endgame is scaling 10x to 100x to 1000x. I'm not used to these big numbers. It says we need to commit to it as soon as possible, both because builders and application need predictability, and we need to prioritize properly so that we can actually get executed. So I really like this comment. I kind of like the idea. I know that there's some controversies built into it. Micah was already asking pointed questions. Other people were supportive of it. Other people are still asking questions and tentatively positive about it. So I think it's going to be really, really interesting to see how this discussion shapes up in the days and weeks to come, and how this EIP gets discussed and included. I'm looking forward to seeing it discussed in all core devs calls and see what happens. Jake said the core value proposition of Ethereum is not the home staker. He says this feels spicy. Do you feel many in Ethereum land agree with your take on this? And etc. said, I have a strong feeling Superfizz may have a take on this. And Superfizz did have a take. He says, I have strong views in my belief that Ethereum will be most successful in the future when it's most decentralized and in the homes rather than data centers. But I also have tremendous respect and trust in Dankrad. I'm not mad at him for exploring ideas. Fizz then goes on to explain a bit more. He says, it does go against my belief that anyone can develop a centralized chain, and it will always be faster and more robust than the decentralized chain. And that doesn't make it a better chain. The better that Ethereum has been doing is decentralized and credibly neutral. If we sacrifice that, then we have nothing. So I think those are the values that will actually, supposedly get maintained through this system of, really light verifiability. You can make sure that everything is running the way it's supposed to, and people will be verifying it from home, right, from their wristwatch, if they wanted. It's just then those other categories get divided out a little bit more. So I think that's going to be really, really interesting to see, like I said, how these discussions work out. I actually replied to Jake as well. Let me see. I said, I'm a huge supporter of home staking, obviously. I said, but I think it's okay to ask home stakers to buy new equipment every 3 or 4 years, with the cost being around $1,000 at a time. I said, if a small percentage of node operators fall off, but Ethereum grows by a much bigger amount, then it might be okay to do that. I said, but we need data, more data to make these decisions and figure out what's going on. Jake replied by saying it makes sense and does not seem like a big ask given the minimum amount of stake that people have, right? With 32 stake, it's worth $60,000+. You're making a few $1,000s a year potentially from that, a couple of $1,000s a year. You can spend $1,000 every 3 or 4 years to pay for it. That's the point Jake's making. Then I kind of countered by saying the problem is that it makes profitability more difficult for small operators using things like Rocket Pool or Lido CSM. So if you're a Rocket Pool node operator and you're using a 4 ETH as your stake, the time for you to get profitable on that stake will be longer than upgrading your hardware every few years to make sure that you're running fast enough compute to keep up with the chain. Then those people will be lost. They'll be operating at a loss, and for them, those node operators would fall off the network. The same thing with Lido CSM here. They're operating at 2 ETH bonds at the moment. Those guys would fall off as well. They just wouldn't be profitable quickly enough to pay for their hardware. So it says the length of time to profitability will be longer than the hardware upgrade requirements. That long tail of home node operators will be forced to fall off. And those are the people that we really want, because when it comes to censorship resistance, credible neutrality, they kind of act as the backbone of Ethereum in that case. And they're the ones who really, fly the flag of those values. So I think it's going to be really interesting to see how that works out. And I'm going to be keeping a close eye on it. But I'm definitely open-minded. And I think that, I'm convinced by the reasons needed for the arguments for scaling the L1. Even though we're still trying to figure this out at Ethereum level. And I'm totally convinced, right, that, in a year, maybe 2 years, we'll be burning so many blocks that we'll be burning way more blocks. We'll be burning way more ETH through blocks than we pretty much ever did through blobs. Than we ever did through, regular execution burn that we have on Ethereum. So that is definitely something that I'm going to be paying a lot of attention to. I'm going to be looking at, and I know that, the people who are working on this are sincere, and there's going to be really good stuff ahead. So yeah, let's keep it going. Okay, and it's the 1st of May today, as you know. So we have had an update on the Raffle. Halulu's been running his script to get the information. And this is for the month of April, so giving out prizes. As always, there are 10 prizes of $100. I'm not eligible for a prize, and Halulu is automatically eligible for a prize for running the script every month, which is a pretty nice return for him. This month there were 19 people who submitted, made submissions. Sneaky Ninja Guy with 19, Samus with 19, nice. And then after that we had Blue AVM, me, Meg, Schifrin, Spartan, S-Jaws, and a whole bunch of others, bringing up the rest of 19. So what I'm going to do is copy this into the tool that Hippocrates made, and get it cleaned up. I just need to clean up this data a little bit. So let me do that, and I'll be right back. Okay, so it took me a few minutes to clean up that data, but it's clean now. So Sneaky's got 19, Samus 19, blah, 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 all that. So I'm going to run the script. If my name comes up, I skip me, and Halululo automatically gets a prize. So if his name comes up, he doesn't get 2 prizes, he just gets 1 prize. So let's have a look. Okay, Sneaky Ninja Guy number 1, Spartan number 2, Shifting number 3, Samus number 4, Blue AVM number 5, Regex Buster number 6, Vaka number 7, Valdorf number 8, me number 9, we skip me, and Dr. Doofus number 10. Yeah, so that looks good. And yeah, I'll be reaching out to those people soon to get those prizes to them. I've been really bad. I haven't paid the last 2 months' prizes out yet, but I'll do all that this week. So hopefully we'll be up to date in the next couple of days for that. So yeah, on that note, I'm going to end today's episode. So thank you all for watching, listening, and being part of the Rocky Fuel community. I hope you all have a lovely day ahead, and I'll see you tomorrow. No, actually I won't. Yes, I will. It's Friday. Yeah, bye.